I've been for a few test drives quite late at night when there's no traffic about, and it runs perfectly well with plenty of power, but it's been cutting out. Cutting out after about a mile, and what I've found the problem is this dirty fuel again. I thought I'd clean the tank out quite thoroughly, but the last lot of petrol that was in there I took out, and it was very cloudy and a few specks. So I took the carburettor apart again, and the needle valve was sticky. That's supposed to cut the petrol off when the float chamber's full, and I don't think it was cutting off still, although I thought I'd solved that problem, but obviously it would come back. But the petrol wasn't coming out of the overflow hose, which is why I thought that I'd solved the problem with the needle valve. But then I found the port to the overflow hose was blocked as well. So I think what was eventually happening was the engine was flooding with petrol, because it was coming in, too much petrol coming in through the needle valve, and wasn't coming out through the overflow, so it was just too much petrol was going into the engine. So anyway, what I did was I rigged this temporary thing up with just a plastic bottle and a temporary hose to guarantee that there was dead clean fuel going to the carburettor, and that's worked. I got through that was about half full of petrol. I went quite a few miles with no trouble at all. So I think that's what the problem was, dirty fuel. So what I've done now, I've got this little inline fuel filter. So I'll put that in line when I put it back onto its main tank. I'll put that in line with the tank and carburettor, and that should, if any more muck comes through, that should catch it. So I'll do that. But I've solved that problem, and now there's a problem with the front brake. So I thought I'd got it adjusted just right, but it's gone really loose again now. And I think what's happened, the lugs on the shaft that push the brake shoes apart are quite worn, because it's a fairly old bike, and they're kind of slipping, the shaft's slipping, going right round instead of pushing the brake shoes apart. So in a minute we'll get the the front wheel apart and check that out. So I've got the wheel off and the hub to bits, and what was happening when it was on the bike is that the lever was moving too far before the shoes came in contact with the brake drum, and I was thinking that it was that shaft that was worn. It's kind of rectangular shape to the end, so when it turns it pushes the shoes apart, but I don't think it is worn. Hardly, it's not worn hardly at all. So I think the problem is the brake shoes. I think what I need to do is put some little plates, spacer plates on each shoe, and then they'll start off closer to the drum. Then when you actuate the lever, they haven't got so far to go before they kind of grip the drum. So I'll try that. Well, I've had another inspection of this wheel, and looking at the brake drum, the inside of the brake drum, and it's really badly pitted and rusted. And I think that's really what the problem is. It's wearing the brake shoes away in no time because it's so rough. So I could take the drum out, put it on the lathe, and smooth it out, but that's going to increase the diameter of the brake drum, and there might not be enough metal there anyway. So the only alternative is a replacement wheel, and I've actually found one on eBay which I've ordered, but it's going to come about 500 miles to get here. So anyway, we'll wait for that to come in, and hopefully the bloke, I spoke to the man and he said it's a wheel that's in good condition, it's been regularly used, so the brake drum should be really smooth, hopefully. So I'll just wait for that to come in now, and I'll delay doing the modification to the brake shoes until we get the new wheel, because it might have it's probably got a slightly smaller brake drum interior. Well, this is a case of the good news and the bad news. The good news is that I've had this replacement wheel come in, and the rim and spokes are in quite good condition. But the bad news is the inside of the brake drum is as bad, if not worse, than the one I've got. And I'll put the other one back on the bike now so I can move the bike around. So that means I've got to send this back and get a refund. But what I've found now on eBay is a new, or practically new, wheel hub. So what I've ordered that now, because I can see on the picture of it, I can see the interior, and it looks pretty good, apart from a few tiny specks, which I should be able to, get it back to kind of mirror finish. So that'd be really good. But it means doing a complete wheel rebuild. And hopefully I'll be able to save a lot of these spokes, and I'll probably have to grind the nuts to get the nuts off the end to save the thread on the end of the spokes, and then I'll have to get my wheel building skills into action and rebuild the wheel. So just wait for this other hub to come in now. I've been for a couple of short test rides and ran the engine, and the cutting out problem seems to have come back. The engine cuts out after a mile or two, and I don't think now the problem can be the fuel system, because I've got deep clean fuel in there, and I checked the carburetor and with all the jets. And the spark plug gets wet with petrol when you're trying to start it, so it proves there's petrol coming through. So I'm coming back to this, the idea that it's the ignition. So I've put this device here as an ignition coil test unit that I made a few years ago. So what I've done is, to test the ignition coil in the bike, I've routed it up to this test unit, so I can test the ignition coil kind of independent of the rest of the bike. So I know I'm only testing the coil and nothing else. And I'm looking at the waveform on the oscilloscope. This is that'll be the supply to the coil when the spark plug is sparking. So I'll just show you what I mean. If I turn this is a variable power supply. I can wind the volts up and down, supply voltage. So I'll turn this light out so I can see the scope better and the spark. So if we switch it on, well, we start starting on low voltage. Now if we turn the voltage up, you should hear this spark plug starting to spark. So it starts sparking at about 6 volts. And you can actually see the spark there. So what I'm thinking is that's the sparking atmosphere. So if I turn the voltage up, we should get a more hefty spark. We go up to 8 volts or something like that. So we're getting a pretty hefty spark there, which should allow for the compressed gases in the cylinder. And if we look at the oscilloscope, we can actually see the waveform that's being supplied to the coil. So we're on a 5 volt per division on the screen, so we're looking at 5, 10, about 15, about 20, 15 or 20 volts, 20 volt waveform, kind of squarish waveform with kind of sharp corners to collapse the magnetic field of the core, so we're getting a good spark there. So what I now need to check is the voltage coming out of the generator coil and the points, because if that's not delivering that kind of voltage when it's on load, I'm hoping that will kind of prove that it's the generator coil. So I'll try that next. Before I talk about the ignition problem, which I have cured, I just want to say that I've rebuilt the front wheel. The hub came in, the new hub, so I completely rebuilt the front wheel last night, and the way I did it was with this board. I made this board up, and this spacer ring I made up to set the hub on. So I placed all the spokes loosely on the hub with the original hub bolt. I clamped the hub onto that ring, and then I clamped the rim of the wheel on down with these clamps with these spacers underneath the rim. So this is the rim is kind of central with the hub, and then you have to centralise it up this way and clamp it all down tight, and then you can put the spokes into the holes in the correct pattern and just tighten them up. And what I did was I tightened the nipples all up kind of equally, and when I took it off, it was kind of almost perfectly true. It was true enough for this bike. And then I put some kind of oily, kind of waxy black coating on it to stop the rust, because it's supposed to work slightly rusty. So hopefully they won't rust anymore.